Have you ever felt that flutter in your stomach when you realized he was watching you, without knowing you had noticed? As if, for a moment, the world stopped just so your eyes could meet in silence? Carl Jung knew. The unconscious doesn't lie. While reason hesitates, the soul has already chosen. And what if I told you that the deepest mysteries of love aren't found in words, but in gestures, even the ones he can't control? Why is it that the most conflicted men, those who shift between distant and intense, are often the ones who carry the fiercest passions? Jung revealed that true love is a wild force, one that escapes logic and hides in the details. A restrained smile, a concern that shouldn't exist, a silence that speaks louder than 1,000 promises. Are you ready to decipher the secret language of his soul? Imagine what would happen if you could read the signs that his unconscious is already sending. The ones he doesn't even understand himself. The way his voice changes only for you, how he forgets to pretend indifference when your name is mentioned. These are clues left behind by the purest emotion, the one the mind hasn't yet dared to name. Here's the truth no one ever told you. Love doesn't ask for permission to exist. It settles in the most hidden corners of the self, and when you least expect it, it overflows. And then comes the question worth more than gold. What will you do when you discover that he's more invested than you imagined? Jung taught us that what is denied in the light appears in the shadows. If he hasn't said, "I love you" yet, but his body trembles when you approach, if he laughs nervously when you challenge him, if he protects you even when no one's watching, that's not coincidence, that's destiny. Stay with me, because the next few minutes will reveal what his eyes have already confessed, but his mouth hasn't yet had the courage to admit. And once you understand this language, nothing, absolutely nothing, will ever be the same again. When the body speaks what the mouth keeps silent, some connections don't need words. They reveal themselves in the small gestures that slip past our control, those that even the most rational mind can't hide. Have you noticed how in sync he seems with you? It's not magic. It's pure, emotional biology. When someone is truly connected, mirror neurons come into play, creating an invisible dance of mirrored emotions. Watch how he reacts when you enter the room. His shoulders relax, his breathing lightens, his eyes discreetly brighten. These are micro-expressions that last less than a second but carry more truth than hours of conversation. His unconscious is sending you coded messages, and his body is the best translator, and the details. Oh, the details. He remembers that song you mentioned once in passing. He knows how you like your coffee. Notices when you change your lipstick. That's not a good memory. That's his brain tagging. Everything about you as important. A selective attention that only appears when the heart has already chosen. But the most revealing sign? Vulnerability. Men trained to be fortresses allow themselves to be fragile around you. A goofy laugh he wouldn't let out with anyone else, a silent moment that isn't awkward, a personal story he's never told anyone. These are open doors to an intimate territory, and only you have been given the map. Here lies the beauty of unconscious love. It shows itself precisely in what isn't forced, in how naturally he adjusts his pace to match yours, in the protective instinct that arises for no apparent reason, in the quiet comfort you create without having to negotiate a thing. This secret language isn't in any relationship manual. It pulses in the spaces between everyday gestures, in the pauses between words, in the warmth of a gaze that lingers 1 second longer than it should. And when you learn to read these signs, well, that's when love stops being a mystery and becomes undeniable evidence. The soul's whisper that cannot be silenced. There's a kind of communication that goes beyond words, a harmony that pulses through involuntary gestures and instinctive reactions. When he looks away as you approach, when he laughs before the joke is even over, when your name seems to echo differently in his voice, these are unconscious telegrams sent with no stamp or address. Watch how bodies speak to one another. Does he lean toward you during conversation? Mirror your gestures without realizing it? Adjust his tone to match yours? These are ancestral codes of connection, remnants of a primal language our grandparents knew well. True attraction doesn't announce itself. It seeps through the pores. The most fascinating part? This communication works both ways. Have you ever felt a chill moments before he called? Or dreamed of something he mentioned the next day? Jung called this synchronicity, those invisible threads that weave the destiny of two kindred souls. It's not coincidence, it's resonance. Even silence gains meaning. That moment when words are unnecessary because your eyes have already said it all. The comfort of sharing space without performance. It's in the pauses between phrases that true love builds its nest, quiet but unbreakable. And when the unconscious speaks through others, friends comment that he's changed since you came along. Coworkers notice how he lights up when your name comes up in conversation. Even strangers can sense the energy the two of you generate. The outside world becomes a mirror of what's already blossomed within. This secret language doesn't obey logic, but the law of the heart. The more you learn to decode it, the more you realize that love was never hidden. It was simply waiting for the right moment to be recognized. In the subtext of every gesture, in the undertone of every look, lies a confession that no poem could ever translate. The invisible marks of the heart. When a man starts showing you his scars before his victories, you're witnessing something rare. It's not the glory stories that reveal the depth of his feelings, but those moments when he lets an old fear slip out or shares a painful memory. These late-night confessions, whispered almost in secrecy, are sacred offerings. Notice how he holds his vulnerabilities. Maybe it's the way his eyes drop to the floor when he talks about his father, or the barely perceptible tremble when he mentions a past failure. It's in these cracks of the soul that you find the true path to his inner world. A man who allows himself to be fragile in front of you is telling you, without words, that he trusts your judgment more than his own pride. And the dreams, when he starts including you in his future plans, even disguised as casual remarks, he's signing an invitation for you to stay in his life. Someday, I'll have a house with a porch takes on a whole new meaning when you realize he already pictured you on that porch, having breakfast together. The true test comes during hard times. Watch how he reacts when you're hurting. If he puts your comfort before his own convenience, if he protects your emotional space even when it costs him something, then you're witnessing love in its purest form, the kind that doesn't need an audience to exist. Even his flaws begin to transform. The work that once consumed all his time now has boundaries, because someone more important has entered the picture. Old habits begin to fade, replaced by a desire to be better for you. This silent metamorphosis is the clearest proof that your place in his life has already been etched into the deepest layers of his being. These marks won't appear in dating profiles or seduction manuals. They are inscriptions burned into the soul, silent witnesses of a transformation he himself doesn't fully understand. When you recognize these signs, you are reading the map to a territory that only a few are ever privileged to explore. When love becomes breath. There comes a moment when love stops being a choice and becomes an organic necessity. It's no longer about wanting to be with you. It's about not knowing how to exist any other way. Notice how he naturally makes room for you in his routine, not out of obligation, but because your absence would create a void too big to ignore. Everyday rituals take on new meaning. The morning coffee cup is automatically set for 2. The car seat is adjusted with your comfort in mind. Even his playlist changes, now including songs that only make sense because you exist. These subtle adjustments reveal a deeper truth. He's already written you into the script of his life without even realizing it. True love is measured in the least romantic moments. When he skips a night out with friends to take care of you when you're sick. When he saves the last slice of pizza without needing to be asked. When he chooses your well-being over his pride during an argument. These small, voluntary sacrifices speak louder than 1,000 love declarations. Watch how your worlds begin to blend. His friends become your friends. Your preferences start to influence his choices. Even your dreams begin to share the same destination. This doesn't happen by chance. It's the unconscious working to erase the lines between me and us, forming a new shared identity. The peak of this transformation? Peace. Not the loud, passionate kind of the early days, but the deep serenity of someone who has found their safe harbor. With you, he doesn't have to perform, impress, or hide. He can simply be, with all the imperfections and contradictions that make him human. This is the alchemy of true love. Turning the ordinary into the sacred, the mundane into ceremony, and cohabitation into devotion. When two hearts beat in this rhythm, no words are needed. Life itself takes care of telling the story, what the soul already knows. True love never arrives with a bang. It settles in like the morning light, gentle yet impossible to ignore. All these signs you've noticed aren't accidents. They're the voice of his heart echoing through gestures that reason hasn't yet learned to translate. How many times have you doubted because the words never came? How many nights have you questioned if what you felt was real? The truth is written in the subtext of daily life, in the way he transforms around you without a script. The unconscious always reveals what the mind hasn't processed yet. Jung taught us that the soul has its own language. It doesn't speak through rehearsed speeches, but through the sighs between sentences, the glances that linger a second longer, the silences that carry more truth than any declaration. When you learn to read these signs, you realize love was never in doubt. It was simply waiting to be recognized. No authentic relationship begins fully formed. It's built day by day, brick by brick, through the small moments that seem insignificant but carry the weight of 1,000 promises. What begins as a spark becomes a flame, then a fire, until it becomes the warmth that heats even the most ordinary days. If you found these signs in your story, don't underestimate them. They're the map to a treasure few are lucky enough to find. The kind of love that shows up this way, organic, involuntary, visceral, is the kind that withstands time because it doesn't depend on circumstances, but on essence. The heart's journey is never linear. It advances and retreats, hesitates and surrenders, fears and dares. But when two souls recognize each other, no obstacle is big enough to keep them apart. What began as a simple glance can, over time, become the most beautiful story you've ever lived. All because you knew how to read the signs his soul was sending, long before he understood them himself.